Oh, hi! It's Colt here again with the Fighting 29 Iowa's Martial Arts Forum. Today we have a really awesome guest, Nick Messersmith from University of Iowa Taekwondo, and he's going to tell us a little bit about Taekwondo, the history about it, how it came to the state, and why it's so cool. Looking really excited today. We're going to get to break some stuff, so it's going to be a great episode, so let's get him out here. So we're dying to know more about Taekwondo. We see it all around, but nobody really knows what it is. So a lot of people tried it when they're a kid. But when did it even really start?
Yeah, so Taekwondo, of course, like you said, I think that's one of those things that everyone has done when they're kids. When you say, oh, I've done Taekwondo, oh, I did that when I was a kid. But I think the true meaning and where Taekwondo comes from, you go back to Korea a long time, but in America, it started in 1950. It was brought over here during the Korean War by a man, Grandmaster Junri, who is the only living 10th degree black belt. Taekwondo only goes to 9th, but they gave him a 10th, the World Taekwondo Federation, they gave him a 10th degree just kind of to honor him. He brought it over here. He introduced it. He had like $3 in his pocket. If you ever read his story, it's very interesting. He got off the boat in California and didn't have any money and was trying to figure out what he's going to do. And he decided, I'll go teach the troops that are going to Korea. I'll go teach the Marines. I'll teach them. And I'll teach them Taekwondo. So when they're fighting, they'll see this style. They'll know what it is. So he started teaching. It was a version of Taekwondo. At that time, I think it was still called... it was Taekwondo, but there was a lot of karate elements to it, what we call Tang Sudo, kind of from the occupation of Japan from 45, from the 40s. So it hadn't developed to what it is now, so it's still old. So I think if you learn his style or you watch that style, the older style, you'll see a lot of the strong movements here, where Taekwondo now is very fluid, shorter movements, smaller movements. But it came from him. He also, Junri, if you ever look him up, he taught Bruce Lee. When Bruce Lee came to America, Bruce Lee only knew how to punch, and he only knew how to do Kung Fu.
No kicks?
And he didn't really, Kung Fu doesn't really have a lot of kicks, it's front kick, that's about it.
Oh.
So he trained with, Grandmaster Junri taught him the hook kick, the spin kicks, and all those things that Bruce Lee became famous for. He trained with him. And if you ever go to his dojang, which in Taekwondo we call that dojang, most people know it probably as dojo. But dojang, and Grandmaster Junri, he has a picture of him and Bruce, and then you find pictures of him and Bruce Lee together, and Bruce learned from him for a long time. And Bruce didn't have any money either, so they kind of exchanged. He taught him how to punch and strike with his hands, and he taught Bruce Lee how to kick. So his family still lives, the Ree family still has martial arts. It's not as popular as it used to be. For a long time when he was there, everyone wanted to learn his style, but then after that, kind of all these grandmasters kind of just came in, and now you have different styles of Taekwondo everywhere. So.
Huh, right on. Well, that was kind of interesting. I mentioned karate. We had the karate club on before, and I asked them, what's the difference, or which one came first? And they were saying, it was more like Shotokan or something of that nature. But I always thought Taekwondo always looked so much more dynamic. Maybe I haven't seen enough of all the different styles, but Taekwondo always seemed like you'd have to be pretty athletic.
Yeah, so what people know if you watch the Olympics, because as you know, you doing judo and Taekwondo, the only two martial arts that are Olympic sports. Taekwondo, the Olympic style, and that's what we called, now they rebranded it to World Taekwondo. It used to be called World Taekwondo Federation, but because of the acronym they dropped it. So now it's just World Taekwondo. That is what we know as the dynamic Taekwondo, the competition that you see. That comes from South Korea. That's the South Korean, that's what we call South Korean style or modern style. Then you have ITF, International Taekwondo Federation.
Okay.
And that's the North Koreans, that's what they train. There are still ITF schools here because before Korea was divided, there was just one. So there are some masters that had lived up there that learned Taekwondo. That's what we call traditional Taekwondo. And that you will see a lot of the same, their forms. You'll see very wide stances, strong stances that looks very similar to karate.
Okay.
The reason is when Japan occupied Korea, they took away what it was called Tongsudo at the time. That was Korea's martial art, and Hwarangdo and Taekyon, all these different styles. And they took it, they outlawed it. So they couldn't study. So what happened is Korea didn't really have an identity. So they tried to figure out new ways to do things, and what happened was a lot of masters, karate got introduced, judo got introduced to the Koreans, and after the Japanese left, Korea wanted to get rid of that Japanese culture, so we don't want that anymore. So but we can't do karate, we can't call it karate, what can we do? And a bunch of masters kind of, there's a joke about it, but it's kind of true. It was just masters sitting around getting drunk, and they came up with Taekwondo, and they said, you know what, why don't we take this, and they took some elements of karate and they put some of the elements of them, and instead of punching, they added kicking. They made it more kicking style. They wanted to make it different than karate. How can we make it so that we're not the same as the Japanese? So they decided to add kicking. There's still that style exists today, ITF. There's still a lot of ITF schools. But then there's also, it branched off into what we call World Taekwondo in South once they split. And that became the more dynamic of Taekwondo that you see. That's with all the crazy 720s, 1080s, all the crazy kicks and breaking the boards and the backflips kicking and different things like that and all that crazy stuff that you see. That is what we know as World Taekwondo, and that's more South Korean style. That's more kind of geared toward the sport of Taekwondo. And there's still a lot of tradition in it, but a lot of the drills, a lot of the movements, it's smaller stances, less punching, less striking. Blocks they're not as traditional, they're kind of more modernized and faster and quicker, and everything. So that is kind of what people see. But the Taekwondo, the traditional part, spawns a long, long time ago. So Taekwondo is actually one of the youngest martial arts. It hasn't been around for very long, the art of Taekwondo.
Or perhaps they just hadn't called it
yes,
that yet.
Yes. If you look back, Taekwondo comes from what we call the 5 kwans or the 7 kwans, whatever you want to call it. There were 5 main ones. It's like Mudak Kwan, Chungdo Kwan, all these different ones, and it was kind of families. There's kind of like the policemen did Mudak Kwan, the railway workers did Chungdo Kwan. The post office, the federal government people did a different kind and all that kind. And they took those 5 and they combined them into one art and they called it Taekwondo.
Okay, and what does Taekwondo mean?
That is the way of the hand and foot.
Okay.
So Do, as we know, means way.
Oh,
and then,
Tai.
Yep.
And
Tai
Kwan?
is Kwan. Yep, Tai is foot and Kwan is hand. So Taekwondo is the way of the foot and the fist, or the way of the hand and foot. So,
okay.
just like Judo, Do and Ju is gentle, so the gentle way, or the way of gentleness, and Taekwondo is the way of the hand and foot. So it's mostly, and they do say hand, and there is hand techniques, blocking, punching, striking, but most of it is kicking. About the way you differentiate Taekwondo and karate. Karate is 70% striking with the hands, 30% kicking.
Okay.
Taekwondo is the exact opposite, 70% kicking, 30% with the blocking or the striking with the hands.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how you kind of know the difference between them.
Okay. So, what brought you to start Taekwondo?
Well, I came from Korea. I was born there, and then I was adopted. So my parents, being Americans, and they had no idea anything. They had no idea about Korean culture. They had no idea what it was. And at that time, Korea, and even still today, Korean culture is still very closed off to the rest of the world. I mean, people know, oh yeah, Chinese food or Japanese food, but Korean food, and people like Korean food, but the culture still isn't as well known as a lot of people. Most people know Japanese and Chinese culture. So my parents didn't know, so they looked up a bunch of things, and my grandfather, on my father's side, he had served in the war in Korea, and he told them about Taekwondo. And so they kind of just looked it up, and I started in Boone, actually in Boone, Iowa. I started at the YMCA under a master there, and started learning when I was 5 years old. And then after that, it just kind of is something, growing up, it was something I got to keep a part of my identity of who I was, because, it's that myth that, you go to Japan and everybody has a black belt, or you go to China and everyone has a black belt, or you go to Korea, everyone has a black belt. But in Korea, when you're a male at the age of 18, you have to serve 2 years in the military. It's required. So part of their training is Taekwondo.
Mm-hmm.
They have to learn, and in 2 years they all get a black belt. So generally every male in Korea over the age of 18 has a black belt in Taekwondo. Some of them just...
So it's kind of not necessarily always true, but
Yes.
it's much more common.
Yes, and
Okay.
they might not use it as, they might not become martial artists, and after military they may say they may have nothing to do with it.
Mm-hmm.
But as part of their military training, they have to learn it. They have to learn Taekwondo, and they learn Judo, they learn Hapkido, but and a lot of Hapkido is taught to them today as well in the military, but Taekwondo is kind of that Korean, and there's still arguments of whether Taekwondo is truly Korean, because, again, it has Japanese roots and everything like that. But I think that, for what it's known today is very Korean. The way it's taught and the techniques and everything else like that is very Korean today. So.
Cool. It seems like you see Taekwondo a lot on the discipline of a lot of movies and stunt actors. Why is that, or how does it work?
So I think
in film,
for film, the one thing they want in film is that kind of they want flashiness. They want cool. No one wants to watch a guy just come in and punch.
Mm-hmm.
No one wants to watch that. Taekwondo has the very dynamic kicks. They, like I was saying, 360s, 720s. Guys doing 1080s, 3 rotations in the air and kicking. So a lot of people learn that because then they can go to screen and they can do those flashy kicks. And it may not be practical, but in a movie, I mean, that's what you want. You want to see that kind of cool stuff. Now I think though with movies, the way it is it's moving more towards the practicality. If you saw movies like John Wick or any of those kinds of movies, now it's more of the really close quarter combat, Judo, Hapkido, kind of more self-defense, Muay Thai, kind of elbows, knees, everything like that, flipping, using them, arm bars, takedowns, different things like that. That's kind of, I think, with MMA, with the introduction of MMA, I think more people kind of got introduced to martial arts and the different styles and, so that's kind of gone away, but there are still, I know people still like to see those flashy kicks, I mean, Chuck Norris made them famous, we always say Chuck Norris doing Tung Sudo, learning Taekwondo in Korea and training under Korean grandmasters, had all the kicks and, kind of brought that and kind of made it more popular, but it's just how you get there.
Okay.
And Taekwondo is the same way. It's the same purpose, we all believe in the same thing, but each style is like the different religions is the way we get there to that
cool.
point. This way they do it through sport, through athleticism. This way it does it through power, technique, and and this way may do it through the business side, and this way does it through this side. So it just kind of filters out and everything. So you have each style of martial art is known, or each style of Taekwondo, I should say, is known. If someone comes to me and says, "Oh, I do this style," immediately I can tell you, "Oh, they're gonna have good form, they're gonna have okay form, or they're not gonna have good form at all." And not all of it, because there are some teachers in the other styles that teach well, but there are some styles that are strictly to make money, you know, that promote 8-year-old black belts and you know, have 30 of them and 50 people, and you watch them kick and go, how do you couldn't, if someone really attacked you, you couldn't kick to injure them. Then you have other people that are the sport guys, like I tell you, that are very athletic, that can throw a kick to score a point in a competition, but with that score on the street, would you be able to do enough damage to somebody, to kick someone hard enough on the street that it would damage them? Speed, yeah, you could be fast here, but I can be fast too. But if it doesn't do anything to a 230-pound guy, I'm in trouble, you know. And then you got the power and the martial arts side of it.
So for somebody that wants to start, I was really interested in what you said about like what the gym is actually focuses on can be very different from gym to gym. How could somebody find the gym that's for them?
Sure. For Taekwondo especially, it's really based on what you want to do. You know, I always tell people, if you want to do sport Taekwondo, find world Taekwondo, find us that does Olympic style. You know, if you want to do sport, if you want to play a sport, do a sport like you do in school or anything like that, find that. If you want to do a martial art, if you want to learn the martial way, the way of the old way, you do international ITF, International Taekwondo Federation, which is the North Korean, we call it North Korean style now, but that was the old traditional way of Taekwondo. And you will see the differences. There's a lot of differences in the forms. There's differences in stances, differences in the language that they use for it. We have the same language for bow and ready and all that kind of stuff, but maybe hand techniques are called differently. What we call a down block, they don't call it the same thing, because it's North Korean language. Even though it's still Korean, they slightly tweaked it a little bit. So. And Korean back then is different than Korean today, just as English is in America. So the terminology is a little different, but I think it just depends. If you're a martial artist, you know, I think Taekwondo, and I shouldn't say all of them like that, because you know, we do World Taekwondo, we do Olympic style, but my students will tell you technique and everything is very important. So it really, I think a lot of it is also too where the master comes from. Because for me, I live on the theory and the philosophy of, if you don't learn it correctly, you still can't execute it in the ring. If I teach you a roundhouse kick and I don't make you turn your foot over and you kick like this and it goes upwards like a front kick, it's not going to score in the ring either. You know, in the ring it needs to turn around. So if you don't have good technique, so I believe in technique, and so we spend a lot of time on technique, and I know a lot of people come and think they're going to be doing the sport side of it, which is why we kind of now have sport classes. We have our competition team classes, and we have our regular classes. So our regular classes are the traditional side of Taekwondo, and then our competition classes are the sport side of Taekwondo. Kind of just essentially all you do is get a cardio workout, you learn the drills that you need to learn to be good at competition, and that's it. Where the traditional side, our normal classes, you teach you proper side kick, proper front kick, where toes placement, foot placement, hand placement, everything. And I require the competition team to do those classes because they need to learn the correct way to throw a kick or to execute anything. It's just, Vince Lombardi always said, I could go and tell the defense what play we're running, where we're running, who's getting the ball, and if you guys execute it correctly, they can't stop it. Even though they know where it's going, they know what play it is, who's going to get the ball. If you execute it correctly, there's nothing they can do. So essentially, I believe in that philosophy. If you execute what technique and skill and everything the correct way, precision, even though they know it's coming, they're not going to be able to stop it. You know, you will hit the target, you will hit your spot, you will hit wherever you need to. Even if they block a little bit, even if they put there, you still will do enough damage that you can, if someone were to attack you, you can be able to defend yourself.
So for a newcomer, you'd suggest do your research.
Yes.
Try different things and
like look
be
it
persistent.
up. Look it up. You know, a lot of people just go to the local school and go, oh, they have it here, so I'm going. You know, I always say if there's a better school, even if it's 20 minutes away, it's worth paying your money. Because as you know, martial arts costs some money, and classes sometimes do with getting uniforms, competition, if you do competition, different things like that. So why pay all that money and then get your black belt to find out that, oh, I don't know really anything, you know? Honestly, I mean.
Because you can tell people at the bar that. That's why.
Exactly. And I have students actually that come from, because our style's very, our grandmaster was really hard on us. He taught us the old way, but we also did modern and everything. But we have students still today that have the black belt, 2nd degree, 3rd degree, 4th degree, or they come in as a black belt, and they'll get to our classes, and I have a lot of them that say, I have no idea like what we're doing. We didn't do it this way, and they always tell me my classes are too hard, or it's different things like that, and it's just because, you know,
that's okay to say that, right? If
yes.
it's too hard for you, definitely speak up.
Yeah, definitely. You know, it's definitely, and that's another thing. You know, is I have students that never say anything, and then they show potential, and then they just never come back. And I'm like, where did they go? And it's like, you know, if you're having trouble, it's okay to say, hey, can we slow this down, or can we do that? I will take the time to teach you, and I think good teachers will do that. You know, if they're there just to make money and not really care, and
do push-ups for an hour.
Yeah, exactly. That's what they're gonna do. Just go to class and go, oh yeah, that looks good, and go on, and you get your black belt within a year. You know, I always say, if you know, unless you're in Korea, Japan, China, any of those countries that do it every single day, if you get your black belt within a year, you're probably not doing the right martial art.
Okay.
It should take, I think, with proper technique and skill, it should take at least 2 to 3 years. You know, some probably 3 or 4 or 5. You know, I know some of the Japanese arts take longer. Some of the Japanese arts take maybe 4 to 5 years to get a black belt. You know, some of
okay.
But Taekwondo, generally good Taekwondo will be 2.5 if you push it, but I would say a minimum of 3 years. Would at least 3 years to get a black belt, I would say, if you do everything the correct way and everything. And there are standards. There's a certain time that you have to be at each belt. So if the teacher follows that, it should take about 3 years.
Okay.
So if they don't, and you look at the thing they give you, the handout, and it says, oh, you can get a black belt in a year, probably just turn around and walk out.
Okay.
Probably not the school for you.
Hand them out like candy.
Yes, you know, and everything like that.
Tell your friends.
I mean, we always talk about in Taekwondo, there's the business Taekwondo school, and then there's the martial art Taekwondo school. Martial art Taekwondo school, sometimes the fees are a lot less. Teachers there usually volunteer or makes very little money teaching, because he wants to teach and teach you the right art. And then there's going to be some people that, then some of those masters might charge a lot of money, and you still learn, good. But a lot of schools, sometimes you see $135 a month or $100 a month, and then, you know, you have to pay for a uniform, you have to pay for this, you have to pay for that, and then you get a black belt within a year, and you feel like I haven't learned anything, or I couldn't defend myself. And that's the business side. You know, I understand teachers need to live, and you have to make money doing it, but there's a way to do it without, for one, making your students go broke, but also without
selling snake oil.
Exactly, you know. So I think it's really go and observe, and you know, you may think, oh, this guy is really good, and watching him in his classes, and just because they have 300 students in their school doesn't mean they're a good school. Okay. That's the one thing I know a lot of people goes, oh, I went to this school and they have like 200 people there, that's why I signed up. And it's like, yeah, you sign, and then you realize, and they come here and they go, it's so much different here, you know, it's so hard, it's much harder. And it's like, yeah, because, you know, we emphasize technique, we slow it down. It's not as fast and move, promote, you know, you're going to get a black belt in 5 years, you know. And so it's not one of those things. So I think it's really, you have to do your research kind of, and ask true martial artists, like people that you trust or someone that you know that who knows what they're talking about. Ask them, just ask them, you know, do you think this is a good school? Do you think, you know, would I benefit going here? Would I benefit going here? You know, so I don't know. It's really up to the person, but I mean, and maybe you're looking for, you know, a school that charges $20 a month and you can learn at the YMCA, and that's fine. You know, if you're looking to do it leisurely or whatever, you know, fitness, that would be good. But if you're a true martial artist, I say, you know, look for the best school. Look for the best teacher that you know that can teach you what you want to learn and everything else. So. I think there's a big difference in that. So
I think we gotta have another episode and cover more of these topics. But we'll go over kind of more of the demonstrative part of
Sure.
Taekwondo, right?
Yeah.
Which is, breaking
yes,
stuff.
board breaking. Yes.
So, real quick, tell us what we need to know about that.
Okay, so board breaking, the one thing is it's a staple in Taekwondo. You know, I know a lot of people think, oh, karate and everything, and karate breaks boards, Hapkido breaks boards a little bit, and different arts, but Taekwondo, everything you see on YouTube or Facebook and the people doing all crazy things and spinning and jumping, that's Taekwondo. You know, it's very flashy with breaking.
Okay.
And if you do traditional or sport, more modern, they all has breaking. So
Okay.
One thing about breaking is you don't have to be a big person to break boards. Everyone thinks you have to be this big, 6'4", 250-pound guy and hit, 12
Okay.
boards. The current world record holder right now with the most boards is a female. She weighs 99 pounds. She's
Really?
16, yes. So Hanmadang is a Taekwondo tournament. Hanmadang doesn't have sparring. It has everything else, board breaking, weapons, forms, all the traditional stuff, but it doesn't have sparring. And so there's a lot of people that go and the board breaking, they have power breaking, where they take it, put the boards in the machine, you tell the person the judge how many you want, and based on how many you break, you get graded, and you break more, you win. A few years ago at Hanmadang, there was they had all these big guys, the heavyweight males class. I think the most they broke was 5 or 6. One guy did with a spin back kick, and he broke 5 or 6 boards, and he had trouble going through it. And then this 16-year-old, 17-year-old, forgive me if that's not her age, I think she was 17, 18, she got up there, had a stack of boards and handed it to him, and I think people were kind of like, it was 11 boards. And you can find it on YouTube. It's on Facebook because it would cause a sensation. She spun around and broke all 11. Just right
cool.
through. And no one had ever broken 11 with that kick. So she currently holds the record for that. So
Cool.
so you don't have to be big. You just have to have proper technique. If you have proper technique and you go straight through it, you'll break it. I always tell my students, if you stop at the board, that's the part that hurts. Everyone thinks board breaking hurts or brick breaking hurts. It doesn't hurt if you go all the way through.
Okay.
If you stop or you hit, that's when it hurts. So anytime you're breaking, go all the way through. We always tell my students, I always tell them, kick the holder. Not really kick the holder, but that's essentially the motion you want to do. You want to kick all the way through the board so that it would be like you're kicking them.
Okay.
You don't want to stop at the board and break because you will never break it. So I know we're gonna do some breaking today. I'll do a couple, maybe I'll demonstrate a few kicks, because I know that's kind of the staple in Taekwondo. So
Cool, let's do that.
whatever you want to do.
So real quick, before you throw a kick, you're gonna want to have a decent stance, right?
Yes.
So how should we stand?
So most stances, it really just depends on the person, but most of them, a lot of people, front foot should be square, facing forward. If it's turned a little bit, slightly angled, that's fine. Back foot, you can have it here at the side. Some people open it up, and there is a legend of a kick, and we can go over that later, but you can stand however. There is a legend of a kick, and we can go over that later, but you can stand however. I generally back leg here, ready, weight evenly distributed on the hips so you can move. You don't have to shift your weight. From here I don't have to shift my weight back here to kick with the front leg, and I don't have to shift my weight forward to kick with the back leg. From here, it's evenly distributed. I can just throw a kick.
So you can't kick with a leg that has weight on it.
Yes.
It'll just.
Because if you do that, yes.
Okay.
And as you
That's
know,
a good
as
thing.
you know in judo too, it's the same thing. You want to try to throw them off balance. Get the weight on one side and throw them the other side. So
All right.
roundhouse kick is the basic kick, and that's the kick that everyone usually learns in Taekwondo, the first kick that you learn. And generally it's going to come up here, it turns over, and you hit with the top part of the foot, you hit with here from the toes to the ankle. So a little tiny spot there. I know Muay Thai, a lot of people think you hit with the shins in Taekwondo, but you don't. That's actually Muay Thai. We hit with the foot. So basically roundhouse kick just looks just simple like that. It comes up here and kicks. So one more time, here, around, and down. So that's roundhouse kick. The next kick we're going to do is what we call a spin side kick, and that spawns from side kick. If you ever watch someone do a side kick here, spin side kick is the same. You spin behind, or some Taekwondo schools call this back kick. But you spin, foot comes up and extends out. So from here, spin, kick. So again, one more time here, and kick. Now, when you're throwing that kick, the one thing that's important is that you get the head around, find your target, and then lift the leg. A lot of people try to throw a kick like this, and they're
God
not
knows
looking,
what you hit,
and then you don't know where you're hitting. So make sure you get the head around. Those are the two basic kicks, and then we're gonna do. I'm gonna do breaking with using a variation of spin kick. Use spin side kick for countering a lot. So if your right leg is back, if you put your right leg back here, and I'm in this stance here.
Your opponent has the right leg
Yeah,
back?
so you go ahead and put your right leg back. Yep. So this is what we would call in Taekwondo open stance. So both our chests are facing the same way. This would be what we call closed stance. Oh, you go ahead and yep, there. This is what we would call closed stance.
Okay.
This is when my back leg, power leg is to your back, power leg is to mine. So
Okay.
whenever, when you throw a counter, you want to throw in what we call open stance. And essentially is, if you were to throw a roundhouse kick or you threw a kick with that back leg, so if you threw it here, so you throw, I would block and then it would lead right into spin side kick to the ribs. So we always teach that kick from open stance, just like that. So when we practice that, and that's the best counter to throw for a roundhouse kick. If anyone ever throws that, just spin right there, right to the ribs. So generally, and just so people know at home, generally this board would be half of this. So this right here would be here, and you would just break this little half. But we're gonna break this today. It's usually easier to break bigger boards, but we're gonna do this. So this kick is gonna go, it's a spin. It's gonna spin all the way through and go all the way through into there. So from here, you spin and you kick, and you hit hard. So,
oh, good. That was right where it needed to hit.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. So right in the center.
If you hit it right here, you're really just turning it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. So you gotta hit
Nice.
center. It's about targeting and everything. It's a little harder with a bigger board, but smaller boards like that. So.
All right. That was pretty cool, Nick. But let me show you.
Okay.
Oh. And it goes like, yep, just like that. Yeah, just do that.
Sounds good.
Yeah, thanks. Nick, so tell everybody watching like how they can start Taekwondo at University of Iowa. Taekwondo.
If you want to start at the University of Iowa, we have a website, tkd.uiowa.org. If you go there, you can see all the class times, schedules. You can email me, and the email, I will have it at the bottom of this screen, so they can email email me or a president, and I'll get all that contact info. And just let us know, and you can come and try it out. So.
When are your practice times now? It's this particular time we're filming.
Yes, it's Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays from 6 to 7 p.m. at the field house in room N464 at the University of Iowa campus. We also have competition team practices, so if anyone's interested in doing competition that is a college student, we have classes from 4 to 6 p.m. And also from 5 a.m. to 6 a.m. So they can come and do competition with us. And you please contact me for that, and like I said, I'll have information that you can put at the bottom of the screen. And I'd love to hear from you. And it is, like I said, it is for all levels. A lot of people have an impression that, oh, I have to be advanced, but we do have beginners classes that we spend time with, and white belts, and great assistants that will help you and everyone else like that. So.
Well, thank you very much,
Thank
Nick.
you, sir. I appreciate it.